Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to go back to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before, and I guess you could call these guys one of the kind of cult classic American craft breweries. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years. It's always nice to try their new releases, and you know, this is one that quite a few people have asked me to review for you here on the channel, so I'm glad that I'm able to kind of grant this request, if you like. So for this one then, we are going to head over to the American West Coast, to the state of California, the northern part of the state, and the city of Chico to be specific. So for this one then, we are going to have a look at yet another beer from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. This must be the 15th or 20th or so beer that I've reviewed from these guys, and this one is called the Dankful IPA. So it comes in at 7.4% ABV. It's a West Coast style IPA as far as I can gather, and this one is supposed to be pretty nice actually. We got this beer here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt sortiment on the 8th of December 2020, if I'm remembering rightly, and yeah, I think this should be quite an interesting beer. I've had some really good beers from Sierra Nevada over the years. You know, it started off with the Pale Ale. These guys were one of my first exposures to American craft beer actually, and then beyond that we had the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, which for me is one of the kind of cult classic American West Coast IPAs. That really shows the more kind of caramelly end of the spectrum for a West Coast double IPA. But then we've had the likes of Narwhal, the Bigfoot, I had their Hefeweizen as well. I've had a few lagers, the Hibernation Ale, and also the Celebration Ale as well, actually, the Christmas beers, and those have just been re-released through Systembolaget here in Sweden as well, actually. But yeah, had some great beers from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company over the years, one of the cult classic American breweries, and it is definitely quite nice to see that a brewery that is so well established, these guys are about 40 years old now, it is nice to see these guys continuing to experiment with different beers and things like that. So fingers crossed this is another good one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly these days because we are getting a good selection of American things here in Europe now. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Sierra Nevada Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, as I've told you before, was founded back in 1979 in Chico in Northern California, and it came as a result of the founders Ken Grossman and Paul Camusi expanding their home brewing hobby into a fully fledged brewery. So Ken had fallen in love with Chico while visiting some friends who were studying at the local university, and he eventually opened up a home brewing shop in the town. This was where he met Paul Camusi, and they started brewing together. But in the early days they built much of their own equipment out of recycled dairy gear that they had, and then in 1983 they officially opened their portfolio with 3 beers. Over the coming years they continually expanded, and then in 1987 they purchased the 20th Street plot that has been the home of the Chico branch of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company ever since. Their tap room opened a couple of years later in 1989, and then they continued to expand over the years after that, but then Paul Camusi retired in 1998 and sold his share of the company to Ken Grossman. A bit later on, in 2008, they introduced their Beer Camp event, which has produced a lot of experimental beers over the years, and since 2010 they've also had a partnership with the new Clairvaux Abbey in Northern California, and they've been producing a lot of kind of Trappist style beers there as well. Actually, I would love to try one of those. I've not actually seen those coming over here to Sweden, but fingers crossed that is something that we can look at over the next the next while. Actually, I'm not sure how likely that is, but you know, there's so many beers coming over here from Sierra Nevada these days that fingers crossed that might be a possibility. But in 2012 they announced plans for a second brewery in Mills River in North Carolina over on the east coast. This opened up a little later in 2014, and they've also been credited by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as being you know, a very environmentally conscious company. Basically, they've won numerous awards for their environmental awareness. But this brewery runs exclusively on renewable energy, and they do various other things like give the spent grains to cattle farmers and stuff like this. So you know, there's a huge kind of sustainability sort of thing going on at Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and that really sets a kind of precedent for a lot of the other breweries in the area. But today these guys are producing around 1 million barrels of beer per year. They've apparently had the same brewmasters since 1983 as well, so there is a bit of continuity to this brewery also, which is great. But they still produce lots and lots of different beer. As of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 700 different beers, and I'm sure that number will continue to expand over the next little while. But yeah, that is a very brief summary of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Like I said, these guys are one of the kind of cult classic American breweries. If I do get out to the American West Coast within the next few years, I would love to sit down with Ken Grossman and you know, and just do an interview or something. That would be awesome. I know he comes over here to Europe and things sometimes, but to get Ken Grossman and do an interview with him would be great. I would love to visit the original tap room at Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in Chico in California as well. That's definitely something, that's definitely a sort of life goal almost to do now, and it'd be nice to film an out and about video for you there as well actually. So that is definitely something we'll need to sort out in the future. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you, as I say, about Sierra Nevada Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, this one is a 7.4% West Coast style IPA. It's hopped with Columbus, Chinook, Mosaic, Equinox, Nelson Sauvin, Zappa and Idaho 7. So some really interesting hops in there. Zappa is one that I don't think I've ever come across before, so we'll look at that in a second. And the malt base in this beer is 2-row pale, caramels and rye. This beer apparently is brewed to support like local non-profits in the Northern California area, and also different environmental problems and things as well, different charities that deal with different environmental problems too. So yeah, hence the name Dankful Ipa. I think it was this beer was produced during the kind of Corona pandemic, if you like, to as a sort of financial means of helping people. So there is a portion of the profits and things going from this beer into into helping various local causes and things like that. So pretty cool of Sierra Nevada to do something like that. But yeah, the hops in this one, Columbus and Chinook, we know these guys are used mainly as kind of bittering hops. Columbus has that lovely big floral aromatic spice. Chinook has that big piney resin and the dark grapefruit. Mosaic, we know, kind of tangerine oranges. Equinox is that big kind of limey one. Nelson Sauvin, the New Zealand hop, you know, white, green, grapey notes, maybe a little bit of gooseberry as well. And then Idaho 7 has that kind of very soft tropical fruit quality to it. The Zappa though, as I said, is one that I've never come across before. So this is an American hop that was named after Frank Zappa. It's quite a low alpha acid one actually, at 8%. Yeah, just at 8%, and it's supposed to give you some really passion fruity and kind of minty notes in the green side of things as well actually. So I think this should make for a very, very interesting beer, and Sierra Nevada are quite well known for putting quite a lot of different hops in their hop profiles actually. So hopefully this they should all complement each other quite nicely. But I'll let you just have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. It is quite typical. The artwork in this one from Sierra Nevada. This is a 355ml can, or as the Americans like to say, 12 fluid ounces. So I'm guessing that 1 fluid ounce is somewhere like, what would that be? Is that like 29.5 millilitres or something? I would guess, yeah, something like that. 29.5 millilitres or 29.4 millilitres maybe is like 1 fluid ounce. Kind of the Americans have got very strange measurement systems, I've always said that. But yeah, this beer was actually quite cheap. This was about 30 Swedish kronor, which is, you know, quite impressive for an import beer. So that makes it maybe about $3.50, something like that, American. €3 for the can, and it would be, you know, £2.50, I guess at most. Yeah, £2.50 for this can actually, which again is pretty damn impressive. But yeah, 7.4% West Coast IPA this one. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the can. Very curious to see what this one has in store for us. So yes, I feel I'm saying some crazy words in this video just because my brain is a little bit tired, but yeah, it's been a long week. I've had my Swedish exams and things like that, so yeah, I think these beers are well deserved, and I have to say, this one does look very, very nice. So yeah, I think this is definitely a West Coast IPA, this one, just going by the appearance. So, as you can see, this one is poured a lovely, very rich amber colour. There's a solid, you know, just over 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head on this one. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, and the beer itself has a bit of natural haze to it, but it is quite, it is pretty clear, this one. This is what you would expect from a West Coast IPA. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a little bit of clarity to this one. It does look pretty damn nice actually, so yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider that it is a West Coast IPA and we're quite familiar with this style. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, let's go for it then. Ooh, right. So straight away with this one, it actually smells a little bit almost, the first impression I got out of this beer was almost a little bit like lager, almost. It almost had a little bit of a kind of pilsnery type malty aroma coming out of it. That was not something I expected. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, did not expect that from this one, I have to say. So yeah, there's not Pilsner malt in this, but it almost just smells a little bit Pilsnery in the malt base. Did not think that was coming. But yeah, you can smell that nice kind of smooth mixture of almost white and wholemeal type bread in there. That's the 2 rows that are going to give you that. So maybe the 2 row malt in this one is giving you a little bit of an almost kind of Pilsnery vibe to this beer as well. But there's quite a little bit of a sweet caramel, and this one a little bit more of a toasty McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of the beer as well. But I guess maybe it could be a thing. There is rye in this beer as well, so maybe it's the sort of graininess from the rye that's given it that almost Pilsner type vibe. I really did not expect that from this beer at all. So yeah, smooth. It really almost just smells. The aroma that you get out of this beer in the malty side of things is really like some of these more kind of crisp German Pilsners and things that I've had over the years. Really, I did not expect that in the slightest from this beer. So yeah, the malty aroma in this one is quite interesting, and I think it's a combination of the 2 row, the rye, and the caramels just all working together. So I did not expect that from this beer. So yeah, you can smell with this one, when you go into the aroma a bit more closely, you get a nice kind of smooth, wholemealy bread sort of thing to this one. You can really feel that forming the base of the beer. You do get a bit more of a kind of rye, grainy type quality coming out of it the further you go into the nose as well, and you can smell a wee bit of a kind of straight up caramel and McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to this one as well. So I like how that goes together in this beer too. So yeah, the malty side of this one is definitely quite quirky, and it really has a little bit of a kind of Pilsner vibe to it as well. So I really like how this one goes together. So yeah, that's definitely a very, very kind of quirky thing about this beer for sure. Sorry about the edit there, guys, just got a little bit noisy outside. But yeah, as I was saying, let's have a closer look at the fruity side of this beer then. So, the fruits overall in this beer really come across as being quite oily, and in fairness, you would expect that from a West Coast IPA. Quite a few of the hops in this one, when you put them in a more kind of caramelly and brown sugary orientated malt base, they will give you more of an oily vibe than the sort of soft, juicy kind of thing you'll get from the New England IPAs. But yeah, I mean, with this beer then, I wouldn't say that the the green side of this beer is overly prominent. I mean, you get a little touch of earthiness out of it, which I would guess comes from the mosaic. You do get some nice floral aromaticity, which will come both, well, from quite a few of the hops in the beer, but I'm guessing it's most likely to come from the Columbus and the Chinook in this one. They are most likely to be used in the early part of the boil as bittering hops. Remember, as I've told you in previous reviews, if you add the hops in the early stage of the boil, that gives you more bitterness and things, but then as you gradually add them over the kind of process of the boil, if you like, the bitterness is sacrificed in favour of flavour and aroma, actually. So yeah, I do get a feeling that from the aroma of this beer, there's a bit of that spicy floral aromaticity coming out from the Columbus in this one, but then you start to get more of the kind of piney resins from the. You start to get more of the piney resins from the Chinook in this one. So I do like how that goes together in this beer for sure. It's got a nice little bit of a kind of green backbone to it, but again, I wouldn't say that it's overly prominent. You do get a little bit of grassiness out of the beer as well, and I think all of the hops in this are going to kind of contribute to that. But yeah, it's not too zesty a grassiness either. It's actually quite a dark kind of grassy note. So I'm curious to see how that translates into the flavour of this beer, because I mean, when it's called Dankful IPA, then that is going to play some role in the flavour of this beer. I would think it kind of has to play a bit of a role in this beer. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, let's focus on that. So there's a wee tiny little bit of a kind of grapefruity, passion fruity sort of thing there, but I think that really takes a bit of a back seat. I'm getting quite a bit of a kind of tangerine orange out of this one from the mosaic. There's a good little bit of that kind of big white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of note from the Nelson Sauvin as well, so that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, again, the aroma of this beer, I actually find it really reserved compared to some of the other Sierra Nevada ones that I've come across in recent times. This aroma really is not the most kind of pungent and punchy one that I've come across, but yeah, I do like how that side of the beer goes together, to be honest with you. So yeah, thumbs up to Sierra Nevada for that. But yeah, quite a bit of gooseberry for me in this one. Bit of that kind of soft white green grapey thing from the Nelson Sauvin. I do get some of that juicy kind of tangerine note to it, and there is a bit of a kind of tropical kind of note to this one. Maybe like a sort of dried apricot-y note. Yeah, definitely a bit of a kind of dried apricot sort of thing. I don't get too much in the way of mango in this one. I don't think, yeah, Chinook, Citra wasn't one of the hops in this. But Idaho 7 would give you some very soft kind of tropical notes as well. So there maybe is a little bit of something, maybe a little bit of that apricot-y note that's coming out of this one is quite, it is from the Idaho 7. It's a bit difficult to place this because the aroma really comes across as quite reserved, so I'm hoping that the flavour has a little bit more kind of biting things to it. So we'll have a taste of this one then and see how we go on. Do take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but we're going to taste this one now and just see how we get on. So this one is the Dankful IPA, a West Coast IPA coming in at 7.4% ABV from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in Chico in the northwestern part of California. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, there's definitely a bit more depth to this beer in the flavour than there is in the aroma. Yeah, this is an interesting one for sure. Yeah, I think this beer, when it was canned, what I'm going to say about this one is, it says it was packaged on the 28th of August 2020. I'm going to say straight away, this one is imported by Wicked Wines. That beer needs to be on the shelves far quicker than it's been. I think, Wicked Wines need to be looking at that. To have this in the cans for 3 months before it goes on the shelves is, well, it's actually nearer 4 months. It's 3.5 months roughly before this beer was getting out there. That doesn't really do the beer any justice, so Wicked Wines need to look at what they're doing. This is kind of almost back to the old days when you were getting American IPAs like this and they just were not in good condition. And it's a shame because I heard, as I say, that this beer is good, so Wicked Wines, I hope someone from Wicked Wines sees this, get these beers on the shelves. You need to sort out your, you need to get these beers into Systembolaget faster. And I would think it's not fair to criticise Sierra Nevada for this. It has to be Wicked Wines because, as I say, as the importer, they're the ones who will submit the paperwork to Systembolaget for this. They're the ones who apply for the kind of position in Systembolaget, if you like. So Wicked Wines have to get their shit together and get these beers into Systembolaget faster, because that'll be the reason why I'm not getting so much of an aroma and things out of this. I have to say I'm a bit disappointed in that, because this is the first time I've had this in maybe, let's say, it's the first time I've had something like this from an American beer in over 2 years, and it's disappointing. You know, the importers have to have they just have to have their shit together and get these beers into Systembolaget and get them on the shelves in good time. 3.5 months for an IPA is too long. The beer's lost a lot of its bitterness and things, and especially with a West Coast IPA, you need that bitterness. You need that bitterness and that hop freshness to a degree. I mean, if it's maybe about 6 weeks, fair enough. But anything, beyond that, you really are pushing it. But 3.5 months is an absolute joke. So Wicked Wines, get your shit together. That's terrible, to be quite frank. So yeah, we'll just need to kind of play it as we go with this beer then. But I think it's definitely not fair to kind of it's not really fair to kind of rate this beer properly in a sense, because it's not in its best condition, and the importer certainly hasn't given a good impression of themselves in that regard. So yeah, as I say, not impressed with Wicked Wines on this one. But yeah, let's just cover the beer as well as we can. So yeah, with this beer then, you get a good little bit of that kind of, you can feel the 2-row malt just forming the backbone of this beer. It gives you that sort of trademark smooth brown bready sort of thing, that kind of wholemealy bread. If you go towards the back of the palate, it does become a little bit more sort of grainy and things. So yeah, I would definitely say that about that this beer does have a wee bit of a more kind of, you can get a little bit more of the rye on that back third of your palate there. Yeah, the kind of rye quality of this beer does show a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, nice kind of brown wholemealy bread quality in that middle third of your tongue. On the back third of your palate, it's definitely showing a bit more of the kind of rye notes there. So that's quite interesting. It's definitely one of the more kind of grainy West Coast IPAs that I've had in recent times. But if you go to the centre of the palate, you do get a wee bit of a sweet caramel coming out of this one, and as you move from the centre of your palate out towards the edge, you definitely get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing out of this one. So I like how that part goes together in the beer. But it's got a nice, it does have quite a nice, the malty base in this one is quite nice. As I say, this beer's just let down a bit by the fact that the importer hasn't got it into the shops quick enough. And I have to say, maybe I have to take a little bit of the blame for this one, for not checking the canned on date with this one before reviewing it. But yeah, this isn't a this is a problem that we haven't had in like 2 years from some of these importers into Systembolaget. So yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, as I say, it's just a shame, because I was looking forward to this one. This is a beer that quite a few followers would recommend you to try, and it's just not in its prime condition. It's a shame, it really is. But yeah, in the back corners of your palate, you do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. That will come from quite a few of the hops again in this beer. But as you move further forward, you do get a wee bit of a herbal quality, and as you reach the front kind of corners of the palate, you can feel a little bit of that kind of piney resinous note from the Chinook sitting in there. There's a nice little bit of a floral aromatic spice from this one, which is the Columbus, and then round the kind of front curve of the palate, you've just got a little bit of a kind of lighter, kind of grassy thing coming out of the beer as well. So I mean, overall, it is it's quite a nice beer, this one, I have to say, for sure. But yeah, it does. This one, I should say, it is a nice beer. It would have been even better if it had been on time, like I said. But I'm just quite angry at that, to be honest. I really am a bit pissed off at that. It's just so disappointing. But yeah, that piney resinous note does push its way out the further you go into the aftertaste. You get more of that kind of spicy note from the Columbus as well. Front curve of the palate, as I say, you've got a little bit of a kind of zesty kind of thing to the beer as well. So I do like how all of that goes together, as I said. But on the front third of your palate, you've got that nice oily bubble where that juicy, the kind of juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. If you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you have got a wee bit of a kind of grapefruity note to this one. Then as you move further forward from it, you start to get a more sort of oily, mangoey quality to the beer. There are a few sort of peary, apricot-y, kind of dried fruity notes coming out of the beer. And then on the front half of that front third of your palate, you can get some of the tangerine orange notes in there, and they're really infused with that kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing from the Nelson Sauvin, in my mind. I think with the Zappa in this one, I struggle to notice the influence of it. To be honest, I don't know if it would be a bit more apparent if the beer was a little bit fresher, like I said. But yeah, as I say, this is just disappointing. Bad show from Wicked Wines. You know, if this beer's canned on the if this beer's canned on the 18th. Sorry, the 28th of August, then it really needs to be on the shelves in Sweden by, about a month later. It does need a little bit of time in the can to kind of mature and things like that. So you're probably looking at the latest at the end of October that this beer, August, September, you're probably looking at the end of October. This beer should be on the shelf in Sweden at the latest, but to put that on the shelf early on in December is just ridiculous. That's just stupid. But yeah, the fruity notes you get with this one, this would have been, you can tell that this would have been a solid West Coast IPA, but it's just not in the prime condition, and that the fault of that is the importer. The importer should have had the paperwork with Systembolaget prepared far earlier than they would. I mean, I would guess they would have imported this beer. They would have chosen the import from Sierra Nevada, and then once they had the import, they would have put the paperwork into Systembolaget. So this has been sitting in a warehouse for 3 months actually. And I mean, if you're going to run an import company into Sweden, these guys, Wicked Wines, have been around a while. They should know how the system works, and they should be able to kind of plan these things. If they're going to import Sierra Nevada regularly, they should be contacting them and asking them, what have you got coming up, and planning in advance. It's poor management, this, from the thing. I keep going on about it, but it annoys me. It just annoys me, because this is a problem that it seemed that this had been overcome in recent times. We've been getting American beers over here in really good condition, but yeah, this is just disappointing, as I say. And it doesn't reflect, in some ways it's not good for the import company, but I think some people might not see that and sort of just think, oh, this Sierra Nevada beer's not that great. But that's not the reason. That is definitely not the reason. You need to look beyond that. So yeah, you can tell this would have been a really damn solid West Coast IPA in its prime condition, but we're not getting it in its prime condition in Sweden, unfortunately. That's just how it goes sometimes. But yeah, fingers crossed this is an issue that does not happen again. It hasn't happened in about 2 years, I think, when I've been reviewing beers for you here on the channel. So yeah, disappointing, unfortunately, but that's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you're going to get disappointments in life, as we say. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, I would say top end of mid-bodied for this one, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. It's got that nice oiliness that you would want from a West Coast IPA. I would think that in its prime condition, this IPA would be like 80 IBUs, something like that. You can tell that this beer would have been considerably more bitter had it been in the right condition. The malt base has a bit of smoothness to it. The malt base holds up quite well, I would think, and I would say that overall it would lean towards, it's got a bit of the caramel note to it, as I say, but it leans a little bit more It does have a bit of that biscuity kind of thing as well because of the 2-row and stuff that's in it. And the slight graininess that the rye gives it as well would have been an interesting edge. But yeah, the fruits would have been quite, big and oily as well. There's some of the fruits are kind of lingering there, but obviously they're nowhere near as fresh as they might have been otherwise. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. As I say, I'm not going to hold anything against Sierra Nevada in this review. I can tell that this would have been a really damn solid beer had it been delivered to Sweden in the right condition. So what I would say is, if someone from Sierra Nevada sees this review, please do make sure that the importers are going to treat this beer properly, because this one I think has been sitting in a warehouse for 3 months while the paperwork. You have to, in Sweden you have to submit the paperwork to Systembolaget 3 months in advance to get the beer in. So I would be checking, if I was Sierra Nevada, I would be wanting to check that the importers are dealing with the beers properly. So yeah, disappointing from Wicked Wines, not pleased with that, but it's something that used to happen a couple of years ago. You used to get the American beers and they just weren't fresh. And this is always one of the things that I was a bit reluctant about when it came to buying the American beers through Systembolaget. I was happy enough. I live very close to Denmark as well. I was always quite happy to buy the American beers from the Danish shops because you knew they were in good condition. But when it came to Systembolaget, it was a little bit more kind of questionable, if you like. There are other companies that are importing the beers into Sweden and then selling them to Systembolaget that are getting the logistics right and getting the beers out there fresh enough. And Wicked Wines are one of the older importers as well. I've had beers from Wicked Wines for quite a while actually. So yeah, it could be a little bit out of character, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. So again, disappointed with Wicked Wines on this one. They have to get their shit together, to be quite frank. So not impressed with them. But yeah, as I say, not going to hold anything against Sierra Nevada in this review. If possible, what I might do is do a re-review of this one. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry to those of you guys who are watching that were looking forward to my review of this beer. It's just a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. That's all I can say. But I hold no grudge against Sierra Nevada for this one. That's just kind of how it goes, if you like. So yeah, we'll leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the Dankful IPA, 7.4% ABV from Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in Chico in Northern California. Over in America. Disappointed, as I say, with the importer on this one. This beer is not in its prime condition, so Wicked Wines, get your shit together and sort that out for next time. So yeah, fingers crossed we can do a re-review of this one at some point and we get it in its proper prime, if you like. So yeah, I think that's one of the things is, if Sierra Nevada are going to brew these beers, they need to brew maybe an extra batch for the likes of Vinmonopolet, Systembolaget, Alko in Finland, and Vinbjörn. They need to, Sierra Nevada to agree, I think they need to check what these nationalised industries are doing, if you like, with their beers, and check that the importers are dealing with them properly, because Wicked Wines have let themselves down here, no question. But yeah, let's leave it there. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Sierra Nevada. We will return to them at some point soon, but in the meantime, yeah, I wouldn't buy this beer just because of the condition it's in, but if there are fresh batches out there, then I would recommend that you have a go at it if you can. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skull, cheers. Do check out the Sierra Nevada beers, the Paleo and the and various other ones are pretty damn good actually. An American cult classic brewery. Slàinte, skull, cheers.